what really kind of like validates what I do is when my clients are excited and I'm like, wow, this person paid me $7,000 and they were excited about it. I'm really helping this person. It's really not about the money. That's who you want to work with. Don't work with people that are going to be like moaning and groaning about giving you money.
Hola, mis amigos. Welcome to episode 70 of the Andrew Deitch podcast. Today I'm coming to you live from sunny Cabo San Lucas. And I've had an amazing week here with my family. I'm heading back to snowy Atlanta tomorrow, unfortunately. But I just want to make sure to get this episode out before the week was up. If this is your first time joining us, thank you so much for checking it out. I really appreciate you taking the time to give this podcast a shot. My mission here is to bring you transparent, vulnerable, and valuable conversations with the most fascinating people that I know. And hopefully I can bring some entertainment and value to your morning commute. Maybe you're cleaning your house, maybe you're cooking, maybe you're at the gym. But either way, I know there's a million other things you could be listening to right now, so thank you so much for giving it a shot. But let's just jump into this thing. My guest today is Maya Elious, and Maya is a branding specialist. She works with faith-based coaches and consultants to help them put themselves online, create passive income, and reach people that they wouldn't normally be able to reach. She's created a huge following online, and I was honored to be able to sit down with her and chat about what she does. And on this episode, we talked about all kinds of fun stuff like growing up as a child of immigrants, how she started her business, dropping out of college, tips on how to find your ideal clients, and much, much more. And also quick shout out to Katia Sarmiento from episode 58 for making the connection and providing us with the recording space. Without her, this podcast would not have happened. But without any further ado, please welcome the amazing Maya Elious. Magic button has been pushed. All right, what's up, Maya?
Hey, what's going on?
Nothing much. So I've already like introduced you in the intro of the podcast.
Right.
So people know who you are.
Yes.
But just in your own words, if you want to just in a nutshell give who you are in, a couple words or whatever.
Yeah. Okay. So I'm Maya Elious, of course. I'm a personal branding strategist, and I work with faith-based coaches and consultants, and I help them put their business online so they can make more money, make passive income, and reach more people that they wouldn't be able to access offline.
That's a very good nutshell right there. Some people struggle with that so much with what do they do, but I feel like you've got it down pat.
That's my expertise, teaching people their messaging.
That's really awesome, man. Perfect.
Thanks.
Well, like I said, I like giving people the backstory of how you got to where you are and all that. And I think we tend to look at people kind of where they are now. Like I meet you and I'm like, oh wow, this is Maya. She's really cool. She's got it all together. She's got her branding on point, all this stuff. But I'm sure that it wasn't always that way.
Right.
And even just like what has happened when you were younger, something that like made you the way you are. So if you can just kind of like take us back, and how did the old Maya become the current Maya?
Right, yeah. The Maya before knowing how to give a perfect intro of herself. I kind of started out with business. I guess I'll start there, like how I even got into this industry or whatever. I started out by creating MySpace pages, actually. I used to always be on like social networking sites and like these little like online chat rooms, like places I had no business being on, but I really grew up in the internet era, I guess, I would say. Like I was introduced to the internet when I was like 6, and I used to be in chat rooms when I was like 10, which is so unsafe, but I used to be on...
Parents everywhere are like, what?
Yeah, exactly. Oh my gosh. Yeah, I used to be on Black Planet. I don't know if your listeners know what that is. And then there was a Black Planet equivalent for Hispanic people called Mi Gente. There's nothing in me that's Hispanic at all. I am 100% African. My parents are from West Africa. But listen, I was on that site because I just liked that I could have a persona online. and meet people. And so then once MySpace came around when I was in high school, I created a MySpace page, met people through there, and then I learned how to custom code MySpace pages, which was like so cool and fascinating to me. And so I think one thing that's been consistent is that I like that you can kind of be whoever you want to be online, but I've learned how to match the whoever I want to be with who I actually am. And so when I was 18, I started going to this community college, and I met this guy that was like, hey, do you know how to create custom MySpace pages? And I was like, yeah, of course. Like, I do it all the time. And he offered me $50. And I was like, oh my gosh, like I can make money doing something that I'm already spending all my time doing. And that was probably like the beginning of entrepreneurship for me. Like, I never had a point where I was like, I'm going to be an entrepreneur. It was just like somebody paid me to do something that I liked. And I was like, okay, I'm going to see how long this can actually last. And here I am 10 years later making money doing what I love.
That's so awesome. Yeah, because a lot of people, you know, they say of the typical lemonade stand or whatever, but it's kind of cool that you had a newer generation version of that. Because similar to Kat's story, kind of, she was doing similar stuff like that. I think a lot of people can probably relate to being like wanting to customize all their stuff and all that. Because I remember when I first made a Facebook, I was like, I didn't ever get into MySpace, so I never like knew about that, but I knew about like all the customization and stuff. And that was one thing when I made a Facebook, I wanted to like, oh, this is so cool, I can put my pictures and blah, blah, blah. And that's awesome that you figured out that people could pay you to do that. And then once people started paying you to do that, how did it like evolve into websites and stuff like that?
Yeah, it evolved into websites because I told people I was a web designer, and I totally wasn't. But I was just like, oh, well, if I can go to MySpace, of course I can make a website. And then this lady paid me like, I think $400 to make a website, which was the most amount of money I'd made at one time. And I think she even made it in like 2 payments, but it was still a lot of money because I was like maybe like 18, 19 at the time.
Yeah.
And so she paid me the money, and I'm like, okay, crap, now I actually have to be a web designer. So I went on YouTube and figured it out. Like, YouTube was my college then. I was in college at the time before I had dropped out, but like YouTube taught me almost everything that I needed to know. I figured out what I needed to figure out in order to keep the money coming in.
Yeah, I totally agree with that with YouTube because it becomes like a how-to. And the cool thing about YouTube is once you kind of, a lot of these creators that teach everything, I think a lot of people are hesitant to go out there and teach everything they know on YouTube. But those people that you learn from become like the experts, and you tend to value those people. And we can talk about that like later because that I feel like that's probably important to what you're doing now and stuff.
Yes. Yeah, exactly.
Excuse me. Sorry, go ahead.
No, I was just going to say, like, being able to create that content for people who need it and give away some content for free, like, it's just so valuable knowing that you can help somebody. And then in the long run, they're probably going to end up buying from you. At least the right people are going to end up buying from you. Yeah,
that's very true. And I realize that now more than ever because, like, I do that. Like, I go on YouTube and I watch these people, and then I realize I end up buying their products.
Yeah.
And that's like so fascinating because that wasn't a thing back in the day. Like, this is a very new concept to people.
Yeah, it is new. Like, it's just interesting how much more access we have to information. And I know, like, right now we are in the information overload stage, but it's just knowing how to like navigate that information and choosing the experts that you want to listen to. Like, I think a lot of people are overwhelmed with information because they're trying to get information from too many different places and people.
Definitely. Especially when it comes to running a business, because you get information from one person that says, oh, you should be posting on Instagram 2 or 3 times a day. And then some other person's like, no, you should wait and post your best post like 2 or 3 times a week. And you're like, who the heck do I listen to? I have no idea.
Exactly. And chances are they're both right, but you can only listen to one voice.
Exactly.
Yeah.
Exactly. That's awesome. So just to go back a little bit more. So you're saying that you were in college and you were doing this like MySpace thing on the side. And were you like pursuing your classes at all too, or were you just like really wrapped up in this like web design thing and you were thinking that was going to keep going?
Yeah, I was really wrapped up in the web design thing. When I started, like, my vision was, I'm going to like, graduate with a journalism or communications degree or whatever. Like, I was just in college because I thought that's what I was supposed to do. Mm-hmm. And I did communication and journalism because that's what I saw my sister doing before she dropped out. And So sorry, Dad, none of your daughters ended up finishing college, which was something that was important to him because my parents are from West Africa. So my sister and I are first generation. And what they see of success in America is getting a college degree and being able to get a good government job or being able to work for somebody because that's what worked for them. And as I'm older, I can now see their perspective because education has been amazing for my parents to be able to come to this country and provide for me and my sister. Like, we've never, ever been in a place where we had to worry about where we're going to eat, where we're going to live. We've always lived in nice places. So I can see why success for him was synonymous with graduating from college. But I think that we were fortunate enough that we were growing up in a stage where we could get a great education away from college without having to get in debt. So I think that definitely dropping out of college was one of the best decisions that I've made, even though I didn't know that's where my path was going to lead me.
That's so, that I mean, I feel like that's probably typical for most college dropouts because you don't go into college thinking that you're
right.
You're not going in thinking like, I'm probably going to drop out.
Exactly. Nobody's going to pay that money just to be like, I'm going to drop out. Like, if I knew then what I knew now, like, I wouldn't have any college debt.
Yeah, right. That's a whole nother subject. But like you said, you mentioned that your parents always wanted that. And that's definitely, I can relate to that as well. Because I dropped out of college as well. And my dad, when that happened, wasn't super pleased because, you know, like you said, the vision of success is like, you've got that college degree, you've got that high paying job, you've got that quote unquote stability. And going out on a limb and trying something else is not stable,
right?
In a lot of people's eyes, even though, as you know, even going and getting a job is not always stable. You can get fired at any moment, you know, and then what? You know, you got to figure out something else.
Yeah.
But you said your parents were immigrants, right? And that's something that I am not like. I can't relate to because my parents were born in America, like Ohio and Michigan, like the most American as you can get, pretty much just like, oh, we're up here in the cold snow and we're up in the, you know.
That's funny.
But, so what was it like growing up in a household of immigrants? Because that's obviously a totally different experience.
Yeah, I think there was definitely a lot of discipline, but to me, it was kind of like my norm. Like, discipline seemed normal to me. And so I've mentioned, like, I've grown up in, like, you know, nice neighborhoods. We had family in Ohio. We grew up in Pennsylvania. So we know what it's like to live the American life with, like, snow and stuff. And I also grew up around a lot of, like, white people. Like, our churches were predominantly white. My school was predominantly white. We were usually like the only like black family wherever we were. That's just how it was growing up. And so I would think that like the way I was growing up, it was a black thing. And then the way like my friends had it was a white thing. But I think it was more so cultural instead of racial. So like my friends' parents were like so lenient. I thought it was so cool. And I'm like, man, like my white friends are allowed to do whatever they want. And then like, I'm not allowed to do anything. Yeah. So it was just really interesting because I was always like, man, all my white friends' parents are so cool. Because they were
white
allowed
families
to do
are
so much more.
cool.
Yeah.
Oh man.
Yeah.
That's actually really funny though, because you know it's all in perspective, of course. But now, do you appreciate that you're super disciplined?
Absolutely, because discipline is like, it's so important to be an entrepreneur. Like, you can't not be disciplined if you want to be an entrepreneur, because you are your boss, you are your employee. You know, so I definitely appreciate it. As I get older, there's so many things that I see now that my mom or dad has instilled in me where I'm like, damn, they were right. Like, I'm so appreciative of who they are.
Yeah, that's definitely true. I can relate to that as well, because I remember specifically, like, my mom was super strict about video games. And not that video games are bad in any way, but, like, I remember that a lot of my friends that were just kind of allowed to do whatever they wanted, like, all the time, would end up, like, not playing outside and not doing a lot of the more, I guess, adventurous stuff, and, like, learn... Because you learn a lot when you're, like, playing outside, you know, like, skin your knee, and, like, you have to, like, figure out, like, what's happening? You know, like, in doing...
That's how you become a surgeon.
Yeah. Or, you know, like, I've heard it said that a lot of parents should, if their kids are into skateboarding, let them go, like, skateboard and figure out that, like, you know, figure out, like, how to fall and stuff like that, because that's the way that you learn. But you know, a lot of parents, I think they kind of just like, just give them the phone or give them the video games or whatever, and it's kind of sad that a lot of times the lack of discipline just leads to like kids not even knowing how to do anything on their own and just depending on mom and dad.
Yeah, that is so true. That is actually a really good point. Yeah, one of the strict rules that I had was like we weren't allowed to watch TV Monday through Thursday. Like we could only watch TV on the weekends. It was just, it's weird. Like back then I was like, this is so dumb. All my white friends are allowed to do it. But now I'm just like, okay, it's paid off. Not that like all my friends in high school are like, you know, total losers now, but I just see like the majority of them are not doing what I'm doing. They're working for somebody and they might enjoy their job, but I am just really grateful specifically for the position that I'm in.
Yeah, that's awesome. I remember my mom used to make us like do chores for coupons that we could redeem in order to watch TV.
Ooh, nice.
I was like
that.
I always thought that was the dumbest thing. I'm like, none of my friends do this, Mom. This is so stupid. But like it like taught me, you know, you have to work first and then you can play. It's kind of funny.
I know. But oh my gosh, that's hilarious.
You said you grew up in Pennsylvania, right? Mm-hmm. And did you move around a lot or did you stick in Pennsylvania? Yeah,
we moved around a lot. I was born in Alabama and I lived there for like 2 years. I've never even had a chance to go back. And then we moved to Atlanta for a little bit. Then we moved to Philadelphia. We lived in 2 different parts of Philadelphia. Then we lived in 2 different parts of Pittsburgh, and then moved to Charlotte, where I kind of started my humble beginnings as an entrepreneur. And now I'm here in Atlanta.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Yeah, like that's another thing that I can't relate to. My parents and my family have always been in Atlanta, so like I just don't even know anything else.
Oh wow.
But like I kind of it gives me anxiety thinking about like moving and stuff, but some of my friends that have moved so much that it just like it's just a part of life moving.
Yeah.
And I kind of wish I had that in some ways because I'm like two-sided where I don't want to be tied down, but I also have like this fear of moving and relocating to this other place.
Right. I remember like I think I was in like elementary school and I asked one of my classmates like where he was born, and he's like, I live in the same house now where I was born. I'm like, what? People do that? Like, why aren't you guys moving every 2 years? Like, that was normal. And it's interesting because, like, I know something that's important to me, like, as far as a relationship. I'm like, I don't want to be married to anybody who has to stay in a city because of a job. Because I'm like, I never want to feel tied down because I'm not used to that. Like, I love the flexibility.
Yeah, definitely. And that's like, it's weird to me because I've always been like that growing up, but now that I've gotten older, I've realized like I definitely don't want that. I want to be able to like just pack up my stuff and like go if I have to.
Yeah.
Like, I don't know why I have that, but it's definitely like an anxiety thing when you feel like you're tied down. And I think a lot of people can relate to that.
Yeah, I think nobody wants to feel like they're held bondage to something, you know, especially if something that's just moving and leaving. I don't think anybody likes that feeling at all.
Yeah, definitely. So you were in college at, where were you again? You said?
I was at a community college called Central Piedmont, and then I eventually transferred to University of North Carolina at Charlotte.
Nice. And that was when you lived in Charlotte? You were going to the community college too?
Yeah.
So you were building MySpace stuff. Before that, had you done like anything entrepreneurial, or was this like your first thing that you're making money on your own?
I did.
Did you have to work jobs and stuff through high school?
I had like one job because I wanted it, but like my dad never wanted me to work. He wanted me to focus on my studies. And I was like, no, I want my own money. So I will say that like I've been fortunate where I didn't have to work if I didn't want to, but I've worked maybe 2 actual real jobs, and then like after that I was just doing what was fun.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
So in college you started this little mini business, and then how did it like evolve into bigger and better things, I guess?
Yeah. I think it evolved once I got really clear on like, okay, what do you want to do with this, right? Because graphic design can be MySpace, it can be business cards, it can be websites, it can be e-commerce sites, and I had to get really clear on who I wanted to work with because I was working with everybody. And then I took this course for freelancers that wanted to double their freelancing rate. And I think really making that investment instead of just always like learning how to be a better designer through YouTube, I learned how to be a better business owner by investing in myself. And that really shifted my thinking.
Yeah. I think a lot of people are hesitant, me included, in like purchasing online courses like that a lot of times because I do feel like there's so much free information out there that I'm like, I could spend this much for this guy to tell me almost the same thing as I would if I like scour YouTube for the best people or whatever. But it's so true, especially even just wasting your own time listening to way too many people and consuming way too much content, that if you just like buy a course and focus in on like that one person, as long as you've done the work to realize that you trust that person, like you definitely should.
Yeah, and if you know you're gonna like implement the work, like you'll get your investment back. Like everything changed after I made that investment.
Definitely.
Really good stuff.
That makes sense. So you were like doubling, you took the course to double your freelance stuff, and then how did you like focus in on what your niche was or what your thing was?
Yeah. One thing that I had to do was I had to pay attention to who was paying me, because in my mind, I'm like, oh, I want to work with like corporate brands. I was like, girl, no, you don't. Because there's no flexibility in design with corporate, because it's very structural. It's like you have to stay within these guidelines. You can only use these fonts, these colors, which you still need to do with other design. But I didn't have an opportunity to have that flexibility. And I thought I wanted to do corporate because in my mind, corporate was like rich white men and I could get money from that. But it was like, if I really paid attention to the people that were paying me, it was African American women that were maybe between like 30 and 45 years old. And that's who's still paying me consistently. So it's like, don't think about where the money is, think about where the money is actually coming from. And so I just targeted more of those people, and I looked like them and I could relate to them, and that's usually who we want to work with, people that we feel can relate to our experiences based off what they've been through or what they look like.
I mean, obviously that's really relatable in some ways, because certain people feel like they need to aspire to these corporate whatever guidelines, because like you said, you envision corporate, oh, that's where all the money is, but there's tons of people out there that are making lots of money on their own smaller businesses that can totally pay you.
Right, exactly.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. So when you first started like realizing that that was your niche or whatever you want to call it, your, I don't even know, niche, I don't know.
Yeah, however you want to say it.
Yeah, people say it both ways. I'm going to go with
I say
niche.
Niche.
Okay. I'm going to do niche.
Okay.
I'm going to go with niche because that's so we can be consistent.
Okay.
But finding your niche, how do you, like if there's someone out there, because I know there's a lot of people listening to this that are young people that are wanting something more. They're probably feeling stuck. They're probably in school or just got out of school and they're in their first jobs or whatever, and they're realizing that they're not feeling fulfilled because they're not actually going after what they want to do. They've probably chosen a path that other people have forced them down or that they feel like they should have done. And like, what advice, I guess, do you have for those people? Because it seems like you've done a really great job of doing that for yourself.
Thank you. So is your question like, what's my advice as far as them choosing a niche, or like what should their next step be? Yeah,
kind of both. Like, I guess, how did you become clear on like what your niche was? Like you kind of mentioned that that's what you realized who you were doing business with as well. And then what steps can people go about like just kind of starting?
Yeah, I think what's really important is to just start doing more of what you enjoy. I really liked graphic design, so I was willing to design everything, but I thought about like, what do I enjoy designing most? So for a long time, I was creating like club flyers. Like a lot of my consistent income outside of MySpace pages was creating club flyers for like club promoters, club owners. Like that was really fun. But then after a while, I didn't like dealing with the audience that came with that service. So I switched the service to like websites for people that felt like they had a purpose, and for like nonprofits, because I liked the energy behind the client who needed that offering. So think about what you really enjoy doing, and then think about like, do I like the energy of the client that comes with this offering?
Definitely. That makes sense, because obviously you want to work at the end of the day with people that you actually enjoy working with.
Exactly. Right.
If you want an asshole boss, then just, a lot of people don't consider that when they're thinking about
Right. It's like, that's kind of the point. Like, if you want to work for something you don't like, just go get a regular job.
That's very true, because you're probably going to end up working for someone that you don't like.
Exactly.
So when did you move to Atlanta?
I moved to Atlanta July 2015, so
nice.
Like 2.5 years ago.
Nice. And that was obviously after you dropped out of college. What was that like experience like? Because that can be super stressful. And there's probably a lot of people out there that want to drop out of college, but like just can't bring themselves to do it.
Yeah. So I think dropping out of college was like the first big, scariest decision of my adult life. And then kind of transitioning my career as I transitioned to Atlanta was the second like biggest decision I make. So I'll talk about the two of those and how they kind of parallel. Dropping out of college was definitely scary because I wanted the support and validation from my dad. Like that was so important. And I'm actually writing a book now, and I'm talking about how like my addiction was his approval. Like I felt paralyzed in decision making unless I felt like I would have his blessing, and my mom's too, of course. But that was just really hard. But it got to a place where I was like, dude, F this. I'm just tired of it. I didn't like my classes. I didn't like my professors. I didn't feel like I was supported by the people I wanted validation from. So it was like, what is the point in even doing this? Like, it doesn't matter how hard you go. If you're not doing something you enjoy and you're not even getting support from the people that you're trying to please, like, just do what you like doing and at least one person's going to be happy. But everybody was miserable. I was doing terrible in school, so my dad wasn't happy. I hated school, so I wasn't happy. So it's like, at least I'll be happy if I do what I want to do.
That's really important because that's what you need to focus on is what's going to actually make you not hate your life.
Right, exactly. And I was really scared. I'm like, oh my God, my parents are going to disown me. I never really felt like they would disown me, but I was just like, I don't know what it's going to be like. And I remember the day that it happened, I was like, F it, I'm just going to do it. And I like went to the grocery store, was like in the middle of the taco aisle because I was going to make tacos for me and my boyfriend that night. And I called my mom and I'm like, hey, I dropped out of school. And I was so freaking nervous, but I had no like real preparation. Like, how could you prepare for the scariest moment of your life? So I'm like, just do it. Like, just rip off the Band-Aid. And she pretty much starts freaking out, not yelling at me, but freaking out, like crying, which is even worse. Like, I'd rather you just like cuss me out and hang up, but my mom doesn't cuss. So she starts crying. She talks about how there's kids in Africa who would die for an education. And I was so like hurt and pissed off at that moment that I just start freaking out right back. And I just start yelling at her, screaming at her. I start cussing at her, which I never, ever, ever do because it's my mom. I would never want to treat her that way. But I just felt like so unsupported in that moment. So I'm like, I'm talking about the biggest decision of my life and you're comparing it to kids in Africa that I have no idea who these kids are. Like, are you concerned about me or are you concerned about comparing me to somebody else? And in that moment, I was just so pissed off. So
yeah. It's funny that you said that that your mom said the thing about the kids in Africa because I feel like that's like the stereotypical thing you say, but it's
Right?
funny because she actually came from Africa, so she has some validity to that statement.
Exactly.
So she can say like, I know this, blah, blah, blah.
Right.
Like whereas my mom could say that and it wouldn't hold any weight because I'm like,
and it's like, Mom, have you ever even been to Africa?
yeah, exactly.
Yeah.
The other funny thing that on a side note, people. I realized this, like, people always refer to Africa as like a country.
Right.
They're always like kids in Africa. It's like, okay, there's a lot of kids in Africa. Africa's one of the biggest continents in the world.
Right. Exactly.
Yeah.
It's not a country.
Yeah, it's not a country. And depending on what part of Africa you go to, you're going to experience all kinds of different
Right. There's
stuff.
probably kids in Africa dropping out of college.
There definitely is. There 100% is kids in Africa dropping out of college.
Exactly.
It is pretty hilarious because actually, like, because, you know, when you're in America, when you think of Africa, you're probably thinking of, like, dry climate, people in, like, tribes and stuff. Mm-hmm. But, like, my family, we were in Spain a couple summers ago. And we took a boat over to Morocco, which is part of Africa.
Right.
But it's, like, very, like... It was not what I pictured Africa to be like. It was very like Middle Eastern kind of like very Muslim area, and it was not. I'm like, wow, I'm in Africa, but not like what if you told people you went to Africa. It's not like Tanzania or something. It's like
it's not what's being portrayed to us here in the States.
Exactly,
basically.
exactly. And I'm in Africa, and no one's black. Like that was the other thing. When whenever you think of Africa, you're like, oh yeah, African American. You know, like they go hand in hand. But
right. Yeah, it's hard to create one image because it's an entire continent.
Yeah.
That's why it didn't look like it, because you were envisioning probably like one country.
Yeah, of course, exactly. And it's all just like, I mean, it's the first time in history where we're expected to be so global too, because the internet has connected us all, Whereas, 50 years ago, you might not ever go over there, or even, it's just, it is weird how we have so much global news and we're expected to be so informed about everything, but yet we are also so uninformed and so misled.
Right. And I think because not even to get into conspiracy theories or whatever, because it's not even that, but it's just we are just shown what the media wants us to see. So it's of Africa what the media wants you to know until you initiate going to Africa and seeing what's there for yourself. So.
Exactly. And I mean, people like you said, not to stir up conspiracy theories, but any place you go, you'll always realize people talking about the other as a negative thing. Yeah. But until you actually go to somewhere and realize how those people live, they're all just people too.
Yeah.
No one has certain. Everyone's life is always focused on themselves. Making their life better. It's not obviously there's bad people out there, but when you think of oh my gosh, don't go to Iraq, it's so scary. I'm sure you'll meet plenty of really nice people in Iraq, or really nice people in these other countries where you think oh my gosh, that's an evil country. Syria, oh my gosh, there's all these terrorists coming out of there.
Yeah, that's such a good point and perspective where it's based on where you are, other will always seem more evil.
Mm-hmm. Exactly. And I've heard of the story of this guy. He was traveling, and everywhere he went, I think he went around the whole world or something in a year. It was his thing. He did a TED Talk. And when he's at every country that he went to, he would tell them where he came from and where he was going next. And he'd be like, oh yeah, I just came from this place. And be like, oh yeah, they're very nice people. And then he'd say, oh, I'm going here. And they'd be like, oh, you got to watch out for those people. So because he'd already been there and nothing bad happened, they said that it was
They already
fine.
framed the mindset where it's oh, well, it must be safe there because you're here.
Mm-hmm.
But it's if you're going there, which kind of even leads back to the whole how parents view us with entrepreneurship. They've already come from the advice that they're trying to give us, but they haven't experienced where we're going. So automatically it's negativity where it's it's not going to work. You have to be careful. This might not work. It's going to be dangerous. So that's so interesting that those parallels even match up.
Yeah, definitely. And also kind of what you're saying with your parents wanting this one specific dream, because it's not even just an immigrant thing. Oh yeah, I want my kids to go to school, even though that's a very typical, I guess, immigrant stories. They want, to come and their kids go to school in America and be, get a college education, because obviously that's a good thing. There's nothing wrong with that system. I mean, well, there's a lot of things wrong with that system, but there's nothing wrong with wanting that for your kids.
Right.
But even my parents who are not immigrants always wanted that, because 50 years ago, that was the ultimate thing. Get a college education, and once you were out, you probably had a really high paying job. And it's just simply not the case these days.
Right.
And I think that, I obviously tooting your own horn, oh yeah, I dropped out of college. Of course I think it was the best decision ever. But I think that we're probably going to be on the right side of history with this, because I only see that this education bubble is going to pop eventually. Because
as far as formal education, I think being educated is extremely important. I made sure I was educated with YouTube and actually investing in a course, but I think with formal education, I honestly just think it's too expensive and it moves too slow for the type of investment that's expected to be made of it. You want me to pay this much money and spend this much time? I can only do one. I'll give you a little bit of money if it's going to take me a lot of time, or I'll give you a lot of money if it's going to take me a little bit of time. But they want both, and you don't get the return on investment the way that you once were able to.
I've never thought about it that way, but that makes so much sense. They're asking for so much. They're asking for the most money and the most time. Mm-hmm. Whereas for example, you could go be an intern somewhere and it doesn't cost anything. You might even have to pay, they might pay you a little bit of money and you'll learn a lot, but it might take you a while before you get a real job there. Or you could take a course that's really expensive, but they teach you step by step exactly how you do this one thing.
Yeah, all the fluff of well, you have to take 17 biology classes because you want to be a computer engineer. It's just kind of I hate sounding like a conspiracy theorist or whatever it is, or whatever they're called, theorist, not therapist, but
a conspiracy therapist.
Yeah.
They help you deal with your conspiracies.
Right, yeah, exactly. I need one of those because I'm struggling. But it just seems like a scam to force me to jam my head with information that I don't need. Like, I think that's one reason I didn't do well too, because like I can't remember all of this information because only a part of it is relevant and important to me. Like, I want to learn what's most relevant to me because like what's most relevant to me is going to make me more valuable to the world. But like me learning a class that I have no business learning is not going to make me relevant and valuable to the world. Mm-hmm. So,
and obviously like in elementary school and middle school, you're learning a broad spectrum of things. And I think that's important because you have to kind of figure out what you're into and what you do like. But you even hear teachers talking about this where, like, for example, a history teacher, you'll present them with a math problem. They're like, I don't know that. That's a math problem. I'm a history teacher. But it's like, but didn't you go to school back in the day? Shouldn't you know kind of how to do this if you were in math?
Right, yeah.
And so adults have got it figured out that they can have this one thing, but they don't let the kids do that.
Right. Yeah, I definitely think like elementary school, middle school, high school, it's important that we have opportunities and access to see what different like education areas are like so we can make a decision. But I don't know, I think it's too much of an ask to expect an 18, 19-year-old to know exactly what they want to do with their life because there's 40-year-olds still trying to figure that out. And I mean, that's what life is, like figuring out what I want to do. And just 18 is just so young now, like looking back, like when you're 18, you think you're like, oh, I'm a grown-ass man, I'm a grown-ass woman. It's like, no, you're not. You're a freaking teenager and you can barely wipe your own ass. And just trying to make a life decision from 18 is just so hard. And another thing that I think is important is just, again, let people be valuable the way that they were born to be valuable. Like, there's people that are meant to be really good at math, and there's people that are meant to be really good at history. And when the history person needs help with math, they don't need to know the answer. They need to go to the person that knows the answer. That's what makes relationships thrive, where we can be strong in other people's weaknesses.
I love that. Yeah, that makes so much sense because people are obviously all not the same, and we shouldn't force them into like this cookie cutter thing. And you know, we spent a lot of time talking about education, and I love what you said about how education is extremely important, but formal education, like there's issues, of course, because I love learning stuff. Like, I have no problem with educating myself. Like, that's something I love doing, love learning new things and new skills. But as far as when it goes into this other thing. But to go back to your story a little bit, you're on the phone with your mom, screaming in the taco aisle.
A food lion.
Yeah, a food lion, no less. This is great. So that moment was obviously like, that's the meltdown moment that every kid that's thinking of that is super scared of.
Yeah.
And when I dropped out, I didn't even tell my parents until I was like back home for the summer. Like, the semester was over.
Oh my gosh.
So I had to like, they were like, when are your grades coming? And I'm kind of like,
They're not.
Yeah, it was weird. But anyways, to go back to that, so how did it, obviously things are patched up, your parents aren't disowning you, but how did that evolve? What was the process?
Yeah, I think there was a lot of moving parts to that. I went home, told my boyfriend I was freaked out, and he understood where I was coming from, but I think he was a little bit disappointed because when he and I first started dating, his mom had just passed away. And he was like, I would never miss an opportunity to apologize to my mom if I had that opportunity. So I was just like, okay, shit, I have to apologize. And it was right before Thanksgiving, and I was like, I need a Thanksgiving meal. So
right.
I apologized. We went out there for Thanksgiving. It was all good. And interestingly enough, my dad did not like react crazy. Like, this is the main person I was afraid of. And he was just like, I don't agree, but I can't really do anything. And I was like, what the hell? Like, why did you not yell at me? So it was interesting, but I did still kind of feel like there were moments in our relationship where he'd be like, so are you going to go back to school? Like, you can still go get that degree. And that was really annoying. But now I finally feel like they respect my decision because they're starting to really see my success. Because there was even moments where it would be like, okay, I made X amount of money this month, Dad, like, and it'd just be like, okay, whatever. Or, okay, I got a speaking gig, and it'd be like, whatever. But now I think that they really see my impact. They see my heart. And I think also because I took the time to understand where they were coming from, and I have so much more grace with them that they can extend that grace back to me. And I think I really had to mature into that place where it was like, just understand that your parents love you and like they're not the enemy. Like just because they didn't support you, it wasn't because they didn't love you, it was because they didn't understand. And so I think being intentional about loving them, growing my relationship with them, and understanding, I was able to attract that same love and support back eventually.
That makes sense. And you said you had your sister dropped out of college too, right? Was that after you did, or was it?
No, it was before, because she's 6 years older than me. So she went to like 3 different colleges and like dropped out of everyone. And I think my dad kept paying for the colleges because he was like, no, she's going to go through it. But yeah, it was a no for her.
So maybe they were, when she dropped out, they're thinking like, okay, well, we still got Maya.
Yeah, I was like the final chance. I was the final chance, and I was like, I couldn't do it.
That's hilarious.
Yeah.
That's actually kind of funny because, you know, sometimes being the first kid sometimes is like hard, but also being the second kid because you're thinking like they've still got a chance. Then they're like, God dang it. Ah.
Right, exactly. Yeah, I think it was definitely hard for my sister because they were always like, you have to be the example for Maya. And she's like, no, like, screw Maya. Like, no offense, but no, y'all be the example for Maya. You know what I mean? And then for me, it's just kind of like, well, don't do what your sister did. So,
and also sometimes it's like the parents are living vicariously through the kids again. Like I see that all the time with like parents and, you know, my friends' parents and stuff, especially when they were choosing colleges. It was more just about like, oh, where are we going to get to go for game day? And like, where are we going to like get to come visit you? Like, oh, this will be fun. Yeah. And it's like all about this, like, you know, college is the most fun 4 years of your life. Yeah. And it's like this, I don't know. It's kind of gross to me sometimes, like how into it.
Yeah, I get that. I think I'm really fortunate that I don't think my parents thought like, oh, I want to live through my child. But as Africans, I think it was just very much so like my child is a reflection of my hard work and success. And so something that they had a tendency to do was always compare me and my sister to like other people's kids that graduated. So it wasn't like, oh, I get to live life through my child. It's like, oh, my child is my reward and they are making me look good. So I think there was a lot of like shame around us not going to college.
Yeah, that makes sense. My dad was the same way because whenever you get around with your friends, you have to be like, oh, so what's Maya up to?
Right, yeah.
Like, she just dropped out of college, and she's trying this new thing. She's making MySpace pages. It's pretty cool. Like, you know? Yeah. And that's just not a, like, glamorous thing to...
Exactly. And when you think about your parents having to have that conversation, you almost feel a little bit bad for them.
Yeah, you have to cringe, because you're just like, dang, yeah, you're right.
Like, she's making MySpace pages? That's so funny.
She just made $50 doing this MySpace page.
Exactly. That is so funny. Yeah.
But by the time you had actually made that decision, and I don't want to talk about college this whole time, obviously, but it's an interesting subject because I think a lot of people can relate. But once you did drop out, like, where was the state of your business? Was it in a point where you were like making money, or was it kind of like, I'm just getting this started, or what?
Yeah, I was in a good place. I think at that time I was making like $2,500 a month, maybe like $3,000, and that was like really good for me because I was 23 when I dropped out. So I mean, 23 at that time, you should have a pretty decent job and be able to afford your bills. But it's like, I didn't have bills. Like, I paid half the rent because I was living with a roommate in a house, and I didn't have a car note because my dad gave me his car. And so it's like I didn't have any actual bills. So like I was doing pretty well for myself. And yeah, I was good. Like, I wouldn't have dropped out without having like a legitimate plan or knowing like I have clients lined up. And then also after I dropped out of college, like I went on Craigslist to like find clients because that was something that I was like in the habit of doing from when I had started. And I ended up being a contractor for a Fortune 500 company, and they paid me like $10 an hour to work from home. And I was like, okay, cool. Like, this is awesome. And I just worked a crap ton of hours for them. And like, I got to the place where I like had made the most money ever, where I was like getting to like that place where I was like, wow, this is legit. I remember making almost $7,000 in a month. I was burnt out like hell, but it felt so good. It was like $6,900 something dollars. And I remember telling my dad about it too, but I was doing income reports. And so he wasn't impressed with the number because he was like, why is your money online? So yeah. So it was like, yeah. And I was just
what a dad thing to say.
Yeah, so exactly, funny. Right? Because
you're like, Dad, I'm so proud of it. He's like, why is this online?
Exactly. And I'm like, seriously, dude, I made almost $7,000 and that's what you have to say. So I was just like, okay, I'm going to just stop trying to impress my dad and just do me.
Yeah, that's so true though, because I think a lot of people can relate to that. But it's kind of like the you can't teach old dogs new tricks kind of thing. It's like,
right.
It's like, Dad, I just made this much investing in Bitcoin. Well, Bitcoin's not even real money. You can't even do anything. What can you do with it? And it's just like, Dad, you don't understand.
I know. Yeah, I think Dad is just always in protective mode. So
yeah,
I mean,
definitely.
My relationship with my parents is just so good and so healthy now. But it's hindsight is just always so funny. Like, oh, Dad,
of course.
Thanks a lot for not supporting me.
Right? No, but you're totally right. They're always have their best interest, but it's typically because they're looking for like, well, what's wrong? This is weird to me, so what's wrong with this?
Yes,
like,
that's
I'm
what
not
it
comfortable
is.
in this zone. This is not what I'm used to, so, like, there's got to be something fishy. There's got to be something wrong.
Right, exactly.
Because there's no way that you figured out something better than I could have, or something like that.
Or, like, I just don't understand, so it must be, like, illegal or something like that, so...
Yeah, definitely. Like, is this even allowed? How's this working?
Yeah.
That makes sense. So, as your business started evolving, I've watched some of your videos and stuff like that, and you said that you started to introduce your faith more into your business. Mm-hmm. What was like the reasoning for making that transition, and like how has it been received? Because obviously that can be kind of a stressful thing for any business, putting like religion into it.
Yeah, I think so. During that part of my business, I had transitioned from design to like strategy and messaging, because like strategy and messaging is just so important for people that want to be online. And so many of my clients at that point had put so much money into design and didn't know what they were saying, right? So like even at the beginning of us talking, you're like, oh, like that was such a good introduction. I'm like, I have to help clients do that, because it's like you have this beautiful business card and beautiful headshot, but you sound really dumb when you speak, or like you're just talking too much. So I started doing that, and as a result of doing that, I started gaining a lot more fans because I was building my personal brand as well. So as a designer, people were familiar with me, but I wasn't really building my personal brand. I was focused on building other people's personal brand, and it felt kind of like weird. Like I wasn't used to so much attention, and like my audience grew rapidly, my community grew rapidly, and I was like, it kind of feels like these people are kind of like worshiping me. And for me, like, it's really important to me that people don't worship people. Like, that's creepy. Like, worship God. And so I was like, oh, maybe if I just put God in it, they'll know like all the cool things that I'm doing is because of him and like because of my faith in God. So that's a huge reason that I introduced faith. Partly because I actually do believe in it, but also kind of as like a buffer or like a safe zone where I was like, I don't know how to navigate all of the credit that I'm receiving, and like I want to make sure that the credit is going to the right person. And so just kind of learning how to accept credit, but then also making sure that people really know where all of this power and success is really coming from.
That's cool. Yeah, because I think a lot of people are very intimidated with that, especially when they're on a client basis where they're requiring people to kind of hire them and bring them on, and they can be stressed out like, oh, maybe this will make me unattractive to the right person or whatever. But I think that the more you can be authentic and be true to yourself, you're going to attract the right people. Yeah. And that's only going to help your vetting process better. Because if someone doesn't want to work with you simply because that you're a Christian or whatever, then that's probably not someone that you would even want to work with anyways.
And I think what's been really interesting is, I mean, it's been received really well. I think I have more people hiring me now specifically because I am a Christian, and they're like, I really love that you're authentic with your faith. You've helped me with my faith. And then I have people that are not Christians at all, and they connect with me because I'm sharing what's real to me. Like, people just want to connect with real people. They're like, I don't really care if you worship God. Like, I care that you are just a real human being. And that, like, I think so many people struggle with their truth and their reality that they just want to be close to anybody who's comfortable in their truth. So they're like, whether or not they believe that Jesus Christ died on the cross for them, they're like, I at least know that this girl knows how to be real, and I want that realness in my life too.
That's interesting. That makes a lot of sense though, because I think a lot of people that are very close-minded to religion don't think of it that way. I think the healthy way to think of it is, regardless of what you believe, as long as you believe in something and you're like, if that's what you if that's what helps you and that's what motivates you and that would give you power or whatever, in however form you want to call it, if you're not a Christian or whatever and you believe in something else, if it's positive for you, then I'm not going to knock it. You know what I mean? And some people get really defensive, like, I'm team this and I'm team that. But I think, as long as, like you said, as long as you're being authentic to yourself and being, putting yourself out there and believing in something, then that's awesome. Like, you can only commend someone for that.
Yeah, I think what's really cool too is like, and again, like, I think I attract people that aren't necessarily like religious, but they're like spiritual. So they're like, oh, I believe in like the angels, or I believe in the universe, or whatever. But what's great is always being able to find like, how can I connect with this person? Like, what do we believe together? Like, we all believe in probably at least one thing that's similar. So, like, the way that our faith is set up, there might be different aspects or, like, different doctrine or whatever. But, like, there is something that we equally believe on and we can connect on and build something out of that.
That's interesting that you say that, because I also feel like anyone, like you said, maybe they don't believe in, like, the Bible, but maybe they believe in angels or the universe or whatever. Typically, those people are probably going to be pretty positive people. Yeah. Because also they're believing that there's like a higher power and they're going to possibly be judged, or what goes around comes around, karma type of stuff. It's probably good people to do business with.
Yeah, exactly. It's always so funny. I remember one of my clients, she's like a spiritual life mentor, and she does like oracle cards and, talks about the universe and like the source and stuff. And before she hired me, we were talking and I was like, yeah, I'm spiritual, but I'm like, I want to be clear that I'm a Christian. Like, I like to be very clear, like what I believe in. She's like, oh, like Jesus and stuff. And I'm like, yeah. And she's like, oh yeah, Jesus is cool. I like him. And I'm like, okay, well, cool. We're good. It was so funny. And it was funny because she actually had a picture of Jesus like behind her because we were on video chat. So I'm just like,
Jesus is my homie. He's right back here.
Yeah, like, okay, you're cool with Jesus. I'm cool with Jesus. And I want to help you build your brand. You want to build your brand. Like, I think we'll be okay.
That's really funny. I was going to say too, I know that on your YouTube channel, because I watched some of your videos and stuff, cool. You kind of had this, I forget what you called it, but it was like this series of videos that you were doing like
Fire
last
to Create,
year.
Yeah.
Yes. So what inspired you to, what was the Fire to Create?
Yeah. The Fire to Create was just kind of talking about how like my faith is really what fuels me to do what I do, and really just wanting to connect and inspire other Christian entrepreneurs, because I feel like they're like, oh, I have to hide my faith in order to be successful. And I didn't want it to feel like that. I really strongly believe that like building a brand should encompass every part of who you are. Like, I don't think every single person that's building a brand has to talk about what they believe in, but I never feel like somebody needs to feel like they should hide it. And so I wanted to talk about like how who I am as a Christian helps me become a better creative.
That makes sense. What do you think the biggest problems or things that people are just doing wrong when they come to you? Like, clients are obviously coming to you because they're having issues or whatever. What are the biggest pitfalls that you see people doing?
The biggest pitfalls are that people are just not clear. Like, they want to do too much at one time. They want to help too many people, which we all go through. Like, even when I first started, I was like, yeah, I'll design for doctors and lawyers and models, MySpace music artists, club owners. Like, I was just all over the place. And that's where a lot of people are that come to me. I think they have a very good idea of what they're passionate about, but they really don't know how to make that passion a business. And there is a strategy to that. Like, just being passionate and talented is actually not enough. Like, what's the strategy to make money from this and make sure that you're bringing in money consistently?
Yeah, because there's a lot of passionate people that don't make money. There's a lot of people that are not passionate that make tons of money.
Oh my God, I hate those people. But yes.
It's true.
Yeah.
And typically a lot of times the people that are the best at what they do are not getting paid enough, and the people that are just mediocre and average but have created like a really successful brand or been able to market themselves really well are the ones that are actually making tons of money.
I know. And I want it to be both. Like, the reason I can't stand when there's people that are making a lot of money with no passion is because like, I know you're still empty. And like, that's why that bothers me, because I'm just like, that emptiness, like that energy is clinging to the people that you're working with. Like, I want people to be, and like another reason I talk about my faith is because sometimes I think Christians have this mindset where it's like money is bad, or like me being a good person means that I can't charge or whatever. And it's really important for me to see people complete as a whole. Like, I want you to be fulfilled spiritually, but you also need to be making money. Like, you need to be fulfilled financially as well. And so to see people doing well financially, but struggling spiritually, or doing well spiritually, but struggling financially, I'm like, there's a disconnect there. Like, these things are meant to be together.
What do you think makes people have that disconnect? Like, why do people feel like money is evil?
I think, first of all, like, I think people misquote the Bible. I think they think, money is the root of all evil. I think the love of money is the root of all evil, because money can't really fill our souls, but it is a resource to get the things that we want. Excuse me. And I think people also think that something with money and being genuine, like, they think those two things can't work. Like, if you love it so much, why are you charging for it? And I think it has a lot to do with, like, a lot of people hate going to a job, but a job is what pays them. So people associate hating something with money, and people associate loving something with doing it for free, because a lot of people only have the opportunity to do things they love outside of a job. And I think that's where that mindset comes in.
That makes sense. Yeah, because, I encounter that all the time. Even one thing that, once I started kind of branching out, some of my friends that, they would say things like, you're ripping people off, or like, you're offering something that you don't need to charge this much for, or like, like what you were talking about with hating money, or hating the thing that they do to get money.
Right.
So they like don't think it's possible to do something that you love and also make money.
Right. They don't think it's possible, and they also don't think that it's ethical.
Yeah. They're like, you should be content with where you're at and just like do the extra for free or something.
Exactly. Yeah. I think
just not how the world works.
It's not. And I think people need to find the balance of, like, being content doesn't mean that you're not allowed to desire more. Like, you can desire more and still be happy with where you are. But desiring more, I think, is something that we're all meant to do. Like, if we all just stayed where we were, it would be really boring.
Yeah.
We're meant to grow.
And obviously, like, people don't think about this, but it's pretty obvious that the more money you have, the more people you can impact.
Exactly. I'm like, yeah, like, that just makes so much more sense. Like, how are you going to help people if you're broke? Like, you cannot help people from a place of helplessness. And that's really what it is.
Yeah, and I think it's all just framing, too, because people could say, like, how dare you aspire to be this millionaire or something like that. But it's like, what percentage of your income are you giving? Or what, and people would say, well, I'm paycheck to paycheck. I can only afford to give 20% of my paycheck.
Right.
But you might not know, but that millionaire might be donating 80% of his paycheck, and it's a hell of a lot more than your little 20%.
Exactly.
And so you shouldn't hate on people that are doing really well. Obviously, there's people that I'm sure are doing really well that don't donate tons of money.
Right.
And don't
There's always the
good.
bad bunch, or like the inconsiderate bunch, or whatever, however we want to describe them. But that doesn't negate that we can't go after what we want.
Yeah, they should be like the exception, not the rule.
Exactly.
Yeah, I think, like, people just don't think you can have it both ways. They don't think you can have money and also do good things and be good with it. I don't know.
Yeah, it's such a money block. Like, I don't even think we would have enough time to go into, like, where that thinking comes from, how you can get out of that thinking. But I think everybody, for the most part, goes through it at some point. Like, I feel like I've gone through that too. Like, okay, but if I make a lot of money, like, my issue was I felt bad making a lot of money when the people around me weren't making as much money. And so I'd be like, okay, well, don't do too much. And then my other issue was, because they weren't making a lot of money, I was always helping them. And then I'm like, I don't even get to enjoy the money that I make, so I don't need to make a lot of it. So there's just so many blocks around money.
Yeah. Did you ever struggle with, like, imposter syndrome, thinking that you weren't good enough for what you were charging or stuff like that?
Yeah, absolutely. I think almost every creative goes through that. I think it's like, you see other people doing it and you're like, okay, I'm definitely going to do this. But then when it's happening, you're like, okay, crap, it's happening. Like, it's in that moment when, like, you're ready to receive it, but you're like, okay, but do I really want this? Like, am I going to be able to deliver? So yeah, I've definitely been through that.
Yeah, my friend Andrew, he's a video editor guy, and we did a podcast together, and one of the things he said was, sometimes you can get paid to learn almost, because you're confident that if someone pays you, you will be able to deliver it, but you're almost still kind of learning it as you go. Like,
Yeah.
hey, can you make a video like this guy's video? It's like, well, I've never made a video like that, but I'm pretty confident I could like do a few YouTube tutorials and like figure it out.
That was me with the website. It was
Yeah.
like, okay, well, this money is in my PayPal account now, so let me hop on YouTube, figure it out.
Right? Yeah. And that's like, you know, a lot of people they think that's like unethical, or that maybe they don't have enough faith that they could figure it out, so they want to like make sure everything's in line before they start charging for stuff. And you should just put your neck out and like try it, because the worst that could happen is, okay, like give that person a refund if you can't deliver.
Yeah, that is, yeah.
You don't want to have to do that, but
right. Try not to do that, because you don't want to waste their time.
Of course.
But the thing is, like, what really kind of like validates what I do is when my clients are excited and I'm like, wow, this person paid me $7,000 and they were excited about it. That's who you want to work with. Don't work with people that are going to be like moaning and groaning about giving you money.
Yeah.
Like, so it just feels good knowing that, like, even though somebody's paying me, the ultimate like thing, like the bigger vision and goal is that I'm really helping this person. It's really not about the money.
Yeah.
And so that's why it's okay to receive the money.
Yeah, that makes a lot of sense. I was going to say, so right now your ideal client is like coaches and stuff like that. So like, how did, I know you kind of said that you naturally kind of fell into that, but what would your ideal client, what's their problems and how do you fix them, I guess?
Yeah. My ideal client is, I kind of have two. So they are like a coach or a consultant, or they have an expertise, but they've never really formally created that coaching or consulting. Like, they're helping people all the time, but they never got paid from it. So that's one group. It's like, you know what you're doing. You've have years of experience in it. So that's one commonality that everybody that I work with has to have. You have to have experience, because I'm not going to put a fraud online. Like, I need to make sure that you actually know what you're talking about, so you're not ripping people off. So one group is somebody that knows what they're doing, but they never formally created a coaching or consulting practice. And then the other group is somebody that knows what they're doing and they've made money offline. And then both of those groups just don't know how to put it online and make money with it.
So then you just come in and overhaul everything and overhaul their entire online image and branding and marketing and everything, right?
Yes, exactly. I help them like take what they already know and create content and products. Put it
That's
online.
awesome. Yeah, I feel like there's a lot of people out there that are in the camp of they have a lot of experience, but they've never charged anyone for it. Like, there's always that one person on Facebook, I feel like, that once you announce that you've started something, they comment, they're like, oh, you should have hit me up. I know how to do this or whatever.
Oh, yeah.
And it's like, well, like, I didn't even know or whatever. And
Exactly.
yeah, or they're like, you need to create a logo or something, and you just created your logo and paid someone to do it, and they come and they're like, dude, I could have made the logo for you or something. And it's like, well, you never put yourself out there.
Exactly. You got to learn how to promote yourself.
Exactly.
That's what it is. Like, people are like, I don't understand why everybody else is getting paid. I'm like, that's because everybody else is promoting.
That's the key. Got to get yourself out there.
Yeah.
Yeah, because, I mean, and even if you have like a beautiful website, if no one knows where to go.
The website is there. Right. That's why I stopped designing for a couple of years, to like teach people, what is your strategy for people to see the website and then buy from it. So
that's awesome. Well, cool. Well, where, if people want to hire you, where can they find you and how do they get in touch with you and all that kind of stuff?
Yes. So the best way to hire me is by going to buildtoimpact.com. That is my agency. And then I also have a membership where I help people create content and teach them the strategies for way cheaper than I charge for one-on-one. It's $27 a month. And they can find out more about that at contentprepacademy.com.
There we go. Cool. Is there anything else that you want anyone to know or anything that we didn't talk about?
I think we covered pretty much everything, from how Africa is a continent and not a country.
Yes, that's the main thing.
That's the main takeaway. So that's what I want you guys to take away from here. And just to do more of what makes you useful to the world, and at the same time makes you feel like you're in alignment with what you're supposed to do.
There we go. I love it. Very cool. Well, thanks for being on the show, Maya, and we'll see you later, everybody.
Thanks for having me.
Boom. There you have it, folks. Thanks for listening. Make sure that you follow Maya on Instagram, and of course, reach out to her if you have any questions or you want to work with her. I'm really glad we were able to knock this one out last week. I had a lot of fun. But All right, so you made it to the end. That's really exciting for me because I think that probably means you enjoyed this podcast. And I have a feeling that you would also really enjoy listening to some other episodes of the podcast. And if you're a fan of this episode and you haven't already, I would definitely go back just one episode to episode 69 with Noelle Jackson. And Noelle is an entrepreneur, a creator, and a professional dancer. And her company, LPR, works with some of the most amazing lifestyle and hospitality brands around the country. Not only do they offer media relations, but they also have evolved to incorporate more content marketing, like social media advertising, content creation, email marketing, stuff like that. And also, over the past couple of years, she's gotten back into dancing. She was recently featured in the upcoming movie Night School, featuring Kevin Hart. And we talked about her upbringing, how she started her company, how her company has evolved, some of the biggest marketing mistakes that she sees brands making, how she got back into dancing, and so much more. Again, that was episode 69 with Noelle Jackson. And also another episode I think you would enjoy is episode 58 with Katia Sarmiento. I mentioned her at the beginning of this episode, but Kat, as well as being friends with Maya and I, she runs reachandmakemillions.com, where she helps 6- and 7-figure digital small businesses scale up with the right systems and operations. She's an absolute tech and systems professional. She knows how to turn any business mess into a success, which that rhymed, but it amounts to more profit, more time, and more freedom for her clients. And she's also been featured on a ton of other podcasts: Entrepreneurs on Fire, the McMethod Email Marketing Podcast, Women's Side Hustle Society, Successful Dropout, and like 12 other podcasts, a bunch of blogs, telesummits, and masterclasses. And honestly, that was one of the most value-packed episodes I've had so far. I would definitely check it out. All right, we made it, folks. Episode 71 is coming up next with entrepreneur and real estate investor Josiah Kwanzaa. And Josiah is the founder of Kingdom Acquisitions, a real estate investment company based in Atlanta, Georgia. And just like Maya, his parents are also from East Africa, but he's a serial entrepreneur. He has a very diverse background, which led him to become a very successful investor at just 23 years old. He's a really amazing guy, and he centers his entire business philosophy on providing as much value and service to those around him, and he puts a ton of effort into solving the problem of generational poverty through working with some other organizations and stuff like that. We talked about all of this and more on that episode. You definitely don't want to miss that one. If you want to support the podcast, the best way to do that is to go to iTunes and rate it 5 stars. That's super helpful for me. Getting featured in iTunes is one of the biggest ways that podcasts explode. So the more ratings, more views, more downloads I have on iTunes, the better. If you're on an Apple device, you're probably already using iTunes, so it's really easy for you to go rate it there. But it just takes a minute. I read all the reviews, so if you want to leave me some feedback, that's one of the best places. I will definitely read it. And also one of the best ways is just to share it with a friend. If you have a friend who you think would enjoy this episode, maybe you're another friend of Maya's, or maybe someone who you think would benefit from Maya's services, send them this podcast. Send it their way. They'll probably enjoy it as well. And of course, I want to provide as much value to those people as well. If you want to follow me, you can go to my website, andrewdeitch.com. You can find links to all of my social media handles and accounts. But I'll be heading back to the States tomorrow. I'll be getting back to business and regular uploads very soon. But also next week, I'll be heading to Florida to go hang out with Ryan McGinn from episode 46. So that should be really fun. Maybe we'll do a part 2. Who knows? I don't know. But all right. Well, I'm going to get back to enjoying the last day of sun here in Mexico. So adios, mis amigos.
Okay, you're cool with Jesus, I'm cool with Jesus, and I want to help you build your brand. You want to build your brand. I think we'll be okay.